Home theater. It's the newest form of entertainment. More than just a way to view movies and sporting events, home theater combines the audio and video in a way that puts you in the center of the action. In this video, we're going to take a look at the home theater concept, describe the components that you need to put together a home theater system, and talk about the ways that you can build up the system from what you probably already have. Home theater reproduces sound in a way that best resembles what occurs when you're listening in person. If you're viewing or listening to something, you turn your head toward it. You hear some of the sound directly from the main source that's now straight ahead. Other sounds come from the fringe that's ahead of you and to either side. And you hear some of the sound, often with a slight delay because of echo in a large area, from behind you. Home theater systems do this focusing of sound from different directions automatically. Just like being there in person, you get some of the sound from straight ahead. More sound comes from ahead and to either side, and still more comes slightly delayed from speakers behind the listener. This arrangement produces an illusion of being in the center of the sound or viewing action, particularly when it's combined with a high-quality video image. Full home theater systems with big screen TVs can cost $20,000 or more. But you can start with some basic components and gradually build an excellent system for a fraction of that cost once you understand how these systems break the sound into the parts we described. Most households today already have the core elements of a home theater system. All you need to get started is a television, a video cassette recorder, and a home stereo with a tape or auxiliary input. When you start making your hookups, just remember that you must always hook an output to an input. To help you keep it straight, just think of output as sending the signal out, and input as taking the signal in. The first step will be to enhance the sound of your television viewing by using your home stereo. To get stereo sound, you must start with a stereo signal. Some cable television companies have restricted methods of delivering stereo sound. If you have cable television, check with your cable provider on how they deliver the stereo signal to the TV or VCR that you will use. Most new satellite systems deliver stereo sound and surround sound. The Satellite System Owner's Manual also diagrams how to hook up the satellite receiver and a local antenna so you can listen to local broadcast channels when you wish and watch satellite broadcasts on demand. Many of the receivers for a satellite system will contain the amplifiers needed to power the speakers in a home theater system. Others will require added components and can be treated much like a cable TV box when it comes to installation. Check your owner's manual to be sure. But most people start with a television, a VCR, and a stereo system. Begin by setting up the television, VCR, and the antenna, cable TV, or satellite system according to the owner's manual for your VCR. To complete the first step of a home entertainment system, look for a TV, VCR, or auxiliary position on your receiver amplifier. Now, this will indicate whether your amplifier or receiver has a place to plug in an additional audio source. If it does, you're in business. If your receiver amplifier has an input but it's already in use by another device like an audio cassette deck, you can purchase a simple audio selector box or AB switch that will let you connect both devices to that one input. You'll then select the one that you want to use. Just follow the directions that come with the selector to hook up multiple audio sources. You'll connect the audio output from every component to the box, then connect one set of cables from the selector box to the amplifier. Whenever you're making a connection, always connect one end of the cable to the jacks marked output on the source device. Then plug the other end into the input where you want the signal to go. Locate the input on the back of the receiver or amplifier, either a tape input or a set of plugs marked TV, VCR, or AUX for auxiliary. This is where you will connect the source of the sound. Now you can select the source that you want by pressing the button for that device. Label the buttons to make selection easy for everyone who uses the system. You're going to need a stereo sound source to get true home theater. There are several sources. As you add new video equipment, begin to upgrade your system with stereo sound. Most new televisions above 19-inch screens are stereo, but there are still a few monaural sets on the market. For your next TV, we also recommend that you consider a monitor-receiver combination that has audio and video jacks in addition to the standard coaxial cable antenna connections. Using the audio and video connections whenever possible will deliver a clearer, cleaner picture with less signal loss compared to regular antenna connections, often referred to as RF connections. If you're looking for the highest quality audio and video source possible, you'll want to consider a laser disc player. These players use digital signal processing to deliver near perfect reproduction compared to the studio original. And you will certainly want a hi-fi stereo VCR. This is a staple in the home theater system since you can play pre-recorded tapes and record shows off the air to watch at your convenience. Since you'll want to watch tapes and view off-air programs in stereo, if your budget requires a choice of upgrading your TV or your VCR to stereo, purchase a good hi-fi stereo VCR first. You can hook up the VCR as an audio source and use the VCR tuner to select channels. That will allow you to enjoy both tapes and off-air programs in stereo and get you started on the road to a home theater surround sound system. You'll also need a set of connecting cables. Radio Shack sells several different lengths and types. Our best cables feature gold connectors to give you better contact and have a metal web inside the plastic outer coating called shielding. This shielding will help prevent the cable from picking up extraneous signals and interference that are transmitted through the air. Always use a cable with at least a 60% shielding factor in any home stereo or home theater installation. The 60% means that at least 60% of the main conducting wire in the cable is protected by the shielding. 100% shielded cable has an unbroken shielding web. It's the best quality cable available. Although it costs a bit more, 100% shielded, gold-tipped cable is the type recommended for a truly top-notch installation. Never use audio cable for video installation. Connect the cables to the input jacks you select on the back of the receiver. Many cables are color-coded to help you keep the right and left channel audio straight as you connect the equipment. A standard color code is red for right and white for the left channel. Video is normally carried through a yellow color-coded connector or cable. Many new televisions, especially those capable of stereo sound, have audio left and right output jacks right on the TV. If your set has them, this is a great audio source for simple installation. This way, all you have to do is turn on the TV and the stereo, select the appropriate input, and you have improved sound through your stereo while you watch the picture, no matter what the program source. Just connect the cables attached to the receiver or the selector box to the audio output jacks on the television. As you do any installation, remember that you always connect the cables to the output of the component that the signal comes from, and connect it to the input of the component where you want the signal to go. Be sure to keep the right and left channels straight so that the sound will best match the action on the screen. It won't matter whether you're watching a satellite dish, cable TV, antenna, or a VCR or Laserdisc. The audio from whatever's being viewed on the television will be sent to the stereo. Some televisions even feature a variable output that will let you use the television remote control to adjust the volume without changing the stereo's volume setting. If your television doesn't have an audio output, or if you have a stereo video cassette recorder and don't have a stereo television, you can use the audio outputs on the back of your VCR to deliver the sound to the stereo. Just plug the cable from the selector box or the amplifier receiver into the jacks marked output on the VCR. Again, be careful to connect the right output on the VCR to a right input on the receiver or selector. Connect left to left as well. This is where the color code, red for right, will help you remember how it goes. When you hook up the system through your video cassette recorder, remember that the VCR must be turned on and have the appropriate channel selected if it's to feed the signal to your stereo receiver or amplifier. The easiest way to manage this is to set the television as if you plan to play a tape and change channels as necessary on the VCR. To play a tape, just load the tape and press play. Volume levels can vary greatly on components. We recommend that when you first test the system, turn the stereo receiver all the way down. You turn on the television, then slowly raise the volume to the desired level. This will prevent possible damage to the receiver or speakers as the result of excessive volume. Now you've taken the first step. You have improved stereo sound by connecting your TV, video cassette recorder, and stereo. Let's take a look at the next step in home theater, surround sound. Whether you're listening to music or enjoying an action movie, surround sound is what gives you the feeling of being in the center of the action. It's what distinguishes home theater systems from simply running a stereo soundtrack through an amplifier and speakers. Surround sound was developed by Dolby Labs. It's a method of encoding information on the soundtrack that allows a separate monaural signal to be sent to the rear speakers. But it requires more than just a separate set of speakers. There must be a processor to reproduce the encoded signal and an amplifier to power the surround sound speakers. Many new receivers have a separate surround processor and amplifier built in. So do some sophisticated VCRs. If you're investing in a new receiver, it's a good idea to look for this feature because it can cost less to move up to a receiver with the amplifier built in than to add one externally. It also reduces the number of connections required and cuts down on the number of pieces of equipment in your home theater system. Connecting a receiver that already has the components built in for home theater is a breeze. Just plug in the audio source, just as we did in the earlier example, and connect your main speakers to the speaker terminals. These receivers typically offer a variety of settings that have various amounts of delay for the rear channel surround sound, and each setting diverts a slightly different proportion of the signal to the main and surround sound speakers. These specially marked surround sound speaker connections are where we will plug in a small set of speakers. Just connect them as you would any other speaker set, matching the positive and negative terminals on the amplifier with the same polarity terminals on the speakers. Hook positive to positive and negative to negative. Most speaker wire will have either a stripe or a set of grooves on one side to help you keep the polarity straight. I always connect the side with the groove or the stripe to the positive terminal. That way it's easy for me to remember which one is which when I'm running wires. But if you already have a satisfactory stereo receiver and the video components you want, an affordable alternative is to purchase a separate surround sound processor and amplifier to add to your system. The simplest method is to purchase a combined processor and amplifier. That way you can install one device in the line between the sound source and the main receiver amplifier. Let's look at another typical stereo TV combination. Keeping the right and left channels straight is very important in home theater systems with surround sound. You'll get a much better sense of sound coming from separate directions with these systems than you have ever gotten through the speakers on your TV, because the speakers are farther apart and are carrying different signals. This will give you the sense of motion in the sound. If the channels are hooked up backwards, a car racing across the screen from left to right will have sound racing across the room from right to left, spoiling the illusion. You'll remember that we hook the audio from the TV or the stereo VCR to the inputs on the stereo receiver. In this case, we just unplug the connectors from the stereo receiver amplifier and plug them into the inputs on the surround sound processor amplifier. I made sure I got a set of cables long enough to run from where I plan to place the surround sound amplifier to the main receiver. So now I just plug the cables into the surround sound amplifier outputs, then connect the other end to the main receiver amplifier inputs. I still follow my red is right rule to make sure that the right and left channels for the stereo sound are correct. But what about the rear surround sound speakers themselves? The surround sound amplifier will have a power rating. Pick a set of speakers that fall into the power range. The signal that the surround sound amplifier sends is a monaural signal, but two speakers are an absolute necessity, or the sound won't surround you. These speakers only have to deal with a limited frequency range of sound, usually within the Dolby standard of 100 to 7,000 hertz, so you can find good speakers without investing a fortune in your second set. But don't take that as advice to buy the cheapest set you can find. A cheap set of speakers will add distortion and can actually deteriorate the sound of your system. Pick a good set that can easily be mounted above and behind the main seating area of your room. The ideal way to position the surround sound speakers is high above you to the rear. Some speakers, like the Pro 7s from Radio Shack, have mounting brackets that make them easy to install on a wall or ceiling. Another popular speaker option are flush mount speakers. These speakers mount into the ceiling or wall. Just be sure you plan the seating and viewing areas carefully before you commit to this kind of permanent installation. Once you finish installing your speakers, you're ready to enjoy the surround sound system. Just start the video source, either a tape, cable box, or whatever, and turn on the TV. Turn on the amplifiers and set the volume. Not all cable systems can transmit the surround sound or even the stereo signal. Check the information supplied from your cable TV carrier on what programs or channels, if any, can transmit the signal. But even if surround sound is only something you can enjoy from Laserdisc or video cassette, you're going to find it an incredible addition to your viewing pleasure. Ready for the latest advance in surround sound? Then let's take a look at the Pro Logic surround sound from Dolby Labs. So far, we've placed two main stereo speakers in front and to our right and left for essentially stereo sound. Then we added the surround sound speakers above and behind to envelop us in the sound and add the realism you get from the impression of reflected sound from behind. Now it's time to add a center channel speaker at the front. This center channel speaker will help smooth out the sound shift from one place to another and help give the illusion of motion, and will act as a dialogue channel for most viewing. It is this fifth channel of sound that advances the system from surround sound to Pro Logic surround sound. Just as with surround sound, most top-of-the-line stereo amplifiers and receivers have the Pro Logic surround sound built in. But if you wish, you can expand your system with a separate Pro Logic surround sound processor and amplifier that powers both the rear surround sound speakers and the center channel speaker. All the connections for the rear surround sound speakers and the main receiver amplifier are the same as those you saw earlier. Only the center channel has been added. Now, it's important to get a good center channel speaker that matches well with your front main speakers. This will help make sound transitions from side to side sound as real as possible. The center channel speaker should be set up as close to the screen as possible, but avoid putting it right on the television unless the specifications show that it is magnetically shielded. The magnetic field from an unshielded speaker placed within 1 foot of a television screen can cause distortion of the image and false color spots. Now comes the best part. Turn on the video source, the TV, and the amplifier, and get set to enjoy your new system with center channel. In the early days of television and movies, most of the technology centered on getting a better picture. It has only been in recent years that sound has become a full partner in the mix. And now with fabulous special effects and great music as an integral part of the art form, your system needs to reproduce a full range of sound. There are a couple of options that you can add to your home theater that will benefit you in enjoyment of music played through the stereo system and improve the realism of your television sound. Explosions or very low bass, like the low notes of a concert pipe organ, will cause distortion and rattling in many speakers, even some with large woofers. Those are the big speakers that produce the low bass notes. That has prompted the development of special speakers called subwoofers. They're designed to work exclusively in the very low frequency ranges, as low as 35 hertz. Very low bass is non-directional, so you can conceal these speakers behind furniture or place it in a corner of a room out of the way. You will notice that both the right and left channel feed into one subwoofer to reproduce the super low bass. Now that's important if you're going to get all the possible sound from your system. To be a true subwoofer, the speaker should have a dual voice coil. That's the circuit that takes the sound from both channels. Otherwise, you're simply buying a regular woofer in a separate cabinet, and it can pick up only the low bass from one channel of the stereo signal. Separate tweeters can do for the high notes what subwoofers do for bass. They'll give you the brilliant highs that are available in many of today's digitally mastered recordings. The tweeters are usually placed with the main stereo speakers. They pick up the high-frequency sounds up to 40,000 hertz and reproduce it with incredible clarity. Home theater systems make listening to music or viewing video more enjoyable, and your system can rival movie theater quality. All it takes is a little time, a little planning, and less money than you think. We've talked about all the elements that make up a good system. The rest of this tape will give you some tips on making good installation decisions. Okay, so you're ready to stop watching and thinking about it and start assembling your new home theater system. Here are a few tips to make it easy to start and easy to add on to your system. We have enclosed a diagram on speaker placement and viewing area with this tape. There's also a diagram of a basic surround sound system on it. Use this chart and diagram to figure out what you can use from your existing equipment and to plan out what you need to add. Now, you may want to keep the copy that came with this tape and make a similar sketch for yourself. I keep mine tucked right under my stereo receiver so that it's handy if I think of a change or addition that I want to make. But the point is, plan your system before you pull out your checkbook or credit card. Plan where you'll place the video screen carefully. The best place is somewhere in the room where all bright light sources are behind a line that runs right by the front edge of the set and out to either side until the line hits the wall of the room. This prevents bright light from reflecting on the screen, especially from doors and windows or bright lamps. Light that can be directed away from the screen is best in a home theater room. If your family spends lots of time in a family room with a home theater system, make lighting part of the plan for the room so that everyone can enjoy it for other activities, even while the set is on. Blinds that direct sunlight away from the screen are a big help, and so are opaque drapes. As far as viewing distance goes, most experts agree that about 2.5 to 3 times the diagonal measurement of the screen is the ideal viewing range. Now that can be a big help in selecting a good screen size for your room. Big screen TVs are gaining popularity as the picture quality improves. But on the whole, the big screens don't have the sharpness and clarity of the direct view tubes of 27 inches or less. So what size should you get? As long as you can get at least twice the distance of the screen's diagonal measurement from the set, the determining factor is how it looks to you. Everyone has preferences in terms of sharpness, clarity, and color intensity. Pick a set that looks good and has good stereo sound. Some new systems, especially the more expensive big screens, are coming with sophisticated Dolby surround sound processors and amplifiers built in. Also, consider how you plan to arrange the components of your system. There are a variety of furniture options that can hold the components. Picking a style that fits your room, budget, and lifestyle is a very individual choice. But as far as functionality, there are some basic things to consider. If you plan to build your system up, or even if you just want easy one-time hookup, make sure that you have access to all the connectors on the TV, VCR, video disc player, receiver, amplifier, or anything else you plan to incorporate. Being able to get to the back can be a big plus if you're adding a new item or even removing one for servicing. And make sure that your components can breathe. Electronic equipment produces heat. That heat has to escape, or it can accelerate the wear on components. Check the owner's manual to find out what minimum clearance they recommend, and never place things over the air vents on top or at the sides of equipment. Your gear will last a lot longer if it doesn't get exposed to heat buildup. You may want to tag the connecting cables to help you identify hookups if you plan to make improving your system a hobby over a period of time. Those tags can help save time when you're trying to locate a specific hookup. Always use a top quality connecting cable. The components can only reproduce the signal that they receive. Good quality cable and speaker wire can greatly improve your sound and picture quality. We recommend using the direct audio and video connectors whenever there's a choice between them and RF connections to improve the signal and reduce interference. Another tip, always be kind to your videotapes. Never put any type of recording tape on top of a speaker. The internal magnets in a speaker can ruin the magnetic image on the tape, causing distortion or even erasure of the tape. And never leave tapes in heat of over 100 degrees or in bright direct sunlight. That can cause warping of the tape. When you store your tapes, always store them completely rewound and place them on one of the narrow edges of the tape, not the top or the bottom. When a cassette lies on the top or bottom, gravity pulls the tape down against the tape guides, distorting the edge of the tape. That can cause tape misalignment when it's played back, making it hard to get a good image or sound quality. When you store them on edge, the tape rests between the guides without getting distorted. You can also extend the life of your tapes by exercising them. You should run all your tapes through, either on play or fast forward, at least once each year. This keeps the tape at the proper tension and prevents the active substance on the tape, called emulsion, from flaking off. And invest in a good head cleaning system for your equipment, whether it's a cassette deck or a VCR. The best way to clean your equipment is by using a swab and some cleaning solution that you can get at Radio Shack. Just be certain that you use the right solution for the job. Video cassette and advanced cassette deck heads are sensitive devices and they require different cleaners. Double check before you start cleaning. You may prefer a semi-automatic cleaning cassette. They're available in both wet or dry types. The wet type requires that you use a cleaning solvent that helps loosen stubborn deposits. While they aren't quite as thorough as a careful cleaning with swabs and solution, they are preferable to letting the machine go for long periods without cleaning. Home theater systems are an investment that can bring a world of entertainment and information into your home with a realism and excitement that just wasn't possible a few short years ago. With a little effort and planning, you can build a system that fits your exact preferences. And you can get additional help at any of our more than 6,500 Radio Shack locations nationwide. When you've got questions, we've got answers at Radio Shack.